without training wheels. So we're working
That's
on the third.
exciting.
That's
Awesome.
That's a milestone. Wow.
It is.
I still remember that day. There's nothing like it.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
going to tell you
it was pretty cool.
It won't be long that they'll be driving off in the car,
Oh, don't say that.
waving
Ann.
out the back window.
No,
And
come on. And let him enjoy
Hopefully they
the-
don't. Hopefully they don't
Yeah.
drive like they ride their bikes.
Okay.
Ready.
make them wear helmets in the car.
They did.
I still remember that day. There's nothing like it.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
going to tell
it
you
was pretty cool.
something.
Without training
It
wheels.
won't be
So
long
we're working
that
on
they'll
the
be
third.
driving off in the
Don't
car,
say that.
waving out the back window. And
We're in a weird loop.
Hopefully they don't. Hopefully they don't drive like they ride their bikes.
I apologize. I didn't mute it.
It's okay.
That comment wasn't as funny the second time around.
I thought it was. I'm waiting for it to loop out.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to call to order the April 21st, 2020 work session for the Tipp City Board of Education, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready?
Apologize, I didn't pause.
Allegiance
I pledge allegiance
allegiance
to
to the
of
the
the United States of America
And
and to the republic
for which it stands, one
One
nation,
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice
and
for
justice
all.
for all.
You want to do the
Okay.
attendance, Dave? There's a weird feedback.
No,
You hear it?
feedback.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. Hold on.
Take your time.
Okay.
Still going.
I might suggest that we all take turns muting to see which one's the culprit.
It's me.
It's the YouTube loop. It's the YouTube loop.
Where is it still playing?
Dave, it sounds like it's on a 10-second delay. Do you have it on delay?
It is on delay, but I don't have any more videos playing.
I might suggest that we all take turns muting to see which one's the culprit.
It's me.
It's the YouTube loop. It's the YouTube loop.
You got it. Nope, you didn't.
mm-hmm.
I'm going to start all over so that doesn't keep.
Do you have it on delay?
It is on delay. I don't have any more videos playing. Does anybody else have the YouTube stream playing?
No, sir. Mm-mm.
You got it. Nope, you didn't.
I'm going to start all over so that doesn't keep.
Found it. All right, I think we're good to go. I apologize for that.
No.
Hey, don't worry. Okay, so you ready to do the attendance?
Yes, ma'am.
It's
That's my dog barking in the background, by the way.
All right. Okay, Mrs. Dunaway,
here.
Mrs. Dahl,
Here.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Here,
Mr. Patry,
Here.
Mrs. Zakor.
Here.
All present and accounted for this evening. We do have a quorum tonight.
Okay, great. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kump for the discussion items. I think, Dave, you're A.
Yep. So I'll just start with the vacation and holiday policy discussion support. So in the past meetings, I've mentioned that I'd like us to go through our vacation policy, and that includes our holidays that are paid for staff members. The attachment that I sent out includes all of the documentation that is in our current policy for vacation and holidays. And I included the Ohio Revised Code section in that as well, where we get most of our policy, because that's what it says. We're going to follow it by law. And then I have my proposals. And did everybody get a chance to go through and look at those proposals? Okay. So just to summarize for those watching, currently we provide vacation after someone has been with the district for a full year. On their first year anniversary, they receive 10 days of vacation, 2 weeks. After 10 years of service, and then they receive 10 days on their anniversary for the first 10 years. After their 10th anniversary, they move to 15 days. And after their 20th anniversary, they move to 20 days. What we found was our policy is lagging behind because we're following the ORC that was established back in, what did I say? That was 1975. And we're finding when we hire people from other districts, they're surprised at where our vacation policy is. And so what I am presenting is I'd like to change it. So instead of being 10 and 20 years, I'd like to change it from 1 year to 8 years, and then from 9 to 14, or 8th year, and then 15 years is the anniversary dates, to go from 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 4 weeks. And instead of waiting for the whole year to pass to give them all of their days, I'd like to start accruing them on a monthly basis, prorated, like we do with sick leave right now. The 15th of every month, we give the employees 1.25 days of sick leave. I'd like to do the same for the vacation, starting when people get hired. And I borrowed from the policy from Troy to get some of the wording on this. So this is done up in Troy. And we also at this time currently follow ORC when it comes to paying out employees when they resign from the district. And currently that allows for vacation earned in the past 2 years, and then any vacation that they have accrued but not received in the last year of employment. Now, if we change this policy around and everyone is accruing vacation while they work throughout the year, then there's no more accrual because they're earning it as they receive it. They're getting it as they earn it. That's what I meant to say. So my recommendation, because we do this for some of our administrative employees, I know that Dr. Kumpf has it in her contract. She can accrue up to 3 years of vacation, and anything past that is lost. If she doesn't use it, she loses it. So I'd like to recommend that if people earn up to 3 years, which is what we have let people do. When I came to the district, the payroll system was set up to allow people to earn 3 years, but we weren't paying out that 3 years. We were only paying, say, 2 years and 5 days or 10 days. So I'd like to change it so that it specifically states that when an employee leaves, they can receive payout at their daily rate for all vacation that they've earned and is on the books under their name. Any questions on that part of the suggested changes that I'm proposing?
I have a question, Dave.
Yes, Ann.
Okay, I'm sorry because I'm really not up to speed on all this. This is a little bit challenging for me, all this data. But when you talk about these vacation days, you're talking about employees that are working year round. Is that correct?
Yes, full-time employees that don't have off at Christmas break or at spring break or over the summer. These are anyone that works 11 months or more out of the year. So that's pretty much anyone that works over 226 days. And so we're only talking we're talking our custodians and some of our secretaries. The high school secretary is 258 days, and the board office staff are 258 days as well. And then administration staff. They're the only ones that are full-time employees.
Dave, I have a really quick question.
Sure, Graham.
Good Friday is listed on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that teachers always have Good Friday off every year. Maybe, Greta, have you historically always tried to make sure Good Friday is a day that is off on the calendar?
Yes, we have. I mean, just traditionally, the Tipp community has preferred having that day available for families. And so I know in this year's contract, it was off. I mean, it's just a non-school day. And
Okay.
so same thing with our projected calendar. The two that we have projected ahead, both of those on Good Fridays are non-school days.
Mhm.
Okay.
I used Good Friday because the previous treasurer before me had negotiated that they have that day as a holiday in their contract. And so I do believe you're correct, Corinne. A few years ago, we did not have Good Friday as a non-school day. And
Because
so,
I was thinking that if we specify that day and then future calendars, then that kind of locks in the teacher
Mhm.
contract.
mhm.
Another day that you don't have off that I think is reasonable is the day Christmas Eve or the day after Christmas. I think that's really special to a lot of families. I don't know if that would be a trade.
Well, that's the item K. Item K is one day during the Christmas break.
Okay, so they could use
So-
it whenever they want.
Yeah, because honestly, with the teachers being off, there's really just a skeleton crew working during that week or that break anyway.
Right.
So it would be nice to let them choose which day works better for them.
Right.
Although we could just change it to Christmas Eve. Again, this is just a work session discussion. This is just spitballing it right now. So
I'd
I
like
think,
to, I'm sorry, I'd like to recommend that you recognize what a federal holiday is. And those other days, I would suggest we call those non-scheduled days. So I'm not opposed to having the Friday after Thanksgiving off, but that's not recognized as a holiday. I think we should call them non-scheduled days and include those in those days off as part of the policy. But we should stick to what holidays are recognized by the federal government, is my opinion. It also then would imply that if you're scheduled to work on non-scheduled days, such as the days between Christmas and New Year or over spring break per se, then the employees that are scheduled during that time would be able to use vacation during that time to have those days off. Does that make sense?
I put all of these days into the calendars when I create them, and the payroll system uses these. So the more we can be consistent, the better for me. I'm not sure. I tried looking up the federal holidays. I mean, that's why I don't state in the policy support staff will be paid for the following federal holidays, because there are some here that we don't normally receive.
Right,
Columbus
Good
Day is
Friday.
not listed in here as one.
Yeah, Good Friday is typically not recognized as a holiday. The day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve is not recognized as a holiday. So I'm just making the suggestion that we delineate between the two.
I see Joellen's point. I mean, and not only that, it's not only federal, it's state holidays as well. So, I mean, then I know they're typically consistent, but and I do like the idea, Dave, where you have one day during Christmas recess and allowing that to be at the employee's choice. I think that flexibility for whatever reason is really nice.
I guess, Joellen, what I could do is we could have the non-highlighted items stay there, and then we could also say additional days off for full-time employees or employees that receive. We could have a second section that has those 3 days under there instead.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of calling them holidays, additional days off will include
Mm-hmm.
Only
Good
non-scheduled.
Friday or the Friday after Thanksgiving.
And then you just code them such on your calendar. That would just be my suggestion. I'm not opposed.
Days off recognized by the district, so it shows.
That's good. Okay, does anybody want to suggest something besides the Good Friday day? Because like Corinne said, there could be a chance in the future where that's not a day off for everybody.
I think if people want it off, they would request it off and use their vacation.
True, they do.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really happening right now, that,
Except our classified staff are the ones, so we have lots of classified staff that receive holiday pay, but they don't have vacation because they're not full year-round staff members.
So maybe, Dave, instead of Good Friday, you can say one day during spring break, because I think that's an equal exchange, kind of. Because there's not students in the building during spring break generally.
True.
Well, and then you have the classified staff that don't work year round. They're off already on that week, so they would only
Okay, so that
find
wouldn't
them.
help them either. Okay.
I mean, the other day that is not listed here is Columbus Day, but don't we have school on Columbus Day sometimes?
Yeah, we do a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
I know this year we did.
I mean, it could just be a floating day. I mean, we could have someone request a day.
Well, I mean, not to get too complicated or in the weeds, but you could recognize Veterans Day as a holiday, and then you could write a clause in this policy allowing a holiday exchange. So employees would then have the option to work on Veterans Day, or they could choose to exchange it for the day after Thanksgiving or Christmas Eve. You could set those parameters, although I wouldn't necessarily have it extend over into, well, I guess you could designate that's in the calendar year or in the school year.
Yeah,
I don't want to get too complicated.
that's exactly right, which is why I've got it.
Too complicated. It's starting to get too complicated already.
That's right.
it's a good idea, but it gets complicated.
It's like Corinne said, or somebody said, if they want to take it, they'll just take a vacation day.
Well, I like the idea of giving some employees some control over when they have some days off. So that's just the option that I'm thinking with that.
Do we work on Veterans Day too, though, sometimes, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, we might work, but it's recognized as a federal holiday.
I just wouldn't want to have every classified staff member not show up to work one day and kids
Yeah.
at school.
And we're trying to get substitutes.
Yeah. So work could just stay at 9 days. 9 days is better than 7.
Yes, it would be an improvement.
And Troy has 12. So
Yeah, didn't you say most schools have 11? I thought you said most have 11.
well,
I thought you said that.
when I worked for the state, I had 10 days. 12 is the most I've heard of with Troy, but I'm sure that others might see more. Again, I'm just trying to, I just want our policy to be a little better than what it is right now. So don't have to give everything right now, but I'm glad that we're looking at this.
Yeah, and the vacation time that you're recommending, Dave, I think it's great because even waiting 8 years in order to get three weeks or 15 business days, that's a little, I don't know how it is in the education field, but it's a little antiquated. Because a lot of times it's 5 years and you're awarded that 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I think what we found with just recently having both a maintenance supervisor as well as a transportation supervisor, that if you come from and you bring experience and you're selected for the position, if you come with experience, then that means that in your prior district, you were having some vacation days, and then to go back to nothing and then really having that nothing for an entire year, that say, for example, if there are a time in their life that someone's having a military graduation or something, they don't really have a day to go and do that. So if they were being able to accrue some days, then that would allow them to not have to go as an unpaid day in order to attend, for example, a military graduation.
Yeah, the year-long wait has been very rough on some of the new hires.
I think getting rid of that year-long wait is smart. When, let's say we hire somebody that comes with 10 years of experience, are they granted 3 weeks of vacation? Do they at least get that?
Yeah, that's called tacking on. And that's part of the law, that if they come from a district where they were previously in full-time employment and there's no break when they go from that district to our district, then we do recognize the years of service that they had there.
Okay.
Correct. And
With vacation?
correct.
Got it.
And then my other question is, you said 3 years they would get paid out. And I think in where it's written in the yellow highlight, I don't see that it has any time limit or years limit. It looks like it's just they're going to be paid for all of it. Is that how you wanted it, Dave, or did you want it to specify 3 years?
You know what? I didn't highlight that section. If you look at the end of the first paragraph, it states
Oh, I
that
see it. Yep. You're
support
right.
personnel may accrue a maximum of 3 years of vacation leave accrual at their current annual accrual rate. So if you're here earning 2 weeks, you can have, 30 days total.
Okay.
When you go to 3 weeks, you can then have 9 weeks total, which 45 days. And then if you make it to the 4 weeks, you can have up to 60 days total.
Are they limited on how many days they can take in a year? So if you've been here, if you have the 20 days a year, but you have some accrued?
We have nothing currently that I'm aware of that limits that.
Okay.
Now, I know that it's written into my contract and Dr. Kump's contract, we have limits on what we can take, but nothing that I've seen in policy for other members. We could put that in there.
Oh, there's probably a reason we don't have it in there.
I don't recommend that. If they accrue it, they should be able to use it.
Well, I think the language needs, I guess I need some clarification, Dave.
Sure.
When you say that they can accrue a maximum of 3 years of vacation leave accrual, are you talking about like 3 actual years, or are you trying to essentially mirror what the statute provides, but instead of 2, use 3?
Right. Well, that's why I said 3 years of vacation leave accrual at their current annual accrual rate. Maybe that's not the right wording, but so if they get 10
Yeah,
years,
I think we need to wordsmith that a little bit to say that lawfully accrued and unused vacation leave to their credit at the time of separation, not to exceed the vacation leave accrued to their credit for the 3 years immediately preceding their separation in prorated proportion. So I think that type of language in there.
I'm fine with any suggestion on that.
And so then the other thing is, I'd say is that, I guess from my perspective, I think the vacation's important. I think that I agree with Ann that we might even consider, if we can, bring it down from 8 years to 5 years for the 3 weeks. But I would also be inclined to limit the amount that they can accrue to 2 years worth, in that you really want people using vacation so that they're fresh. And if you're not forcing that to be taken, then they're not going to be fresh. They're going to get burned out and things like that. So I think you want to have certain aspects of this policy to incentivize people to rest and take those vacations.
I echo Simon's thoughts totally.
Well, okay.
It's a use it or lose it proposition, because a lot of the theory, what I heard in human resources is that, because I mean, that was the old way banking. A lot of employees did that and retired with some pretty big packages. But I think that philosophy sort of left in the 90s, thinking that, yeah, the whole purpose of a vacation is to rest and renew, rejuvenate, to come back a better performer on the job. And I would rather see more vacation on the front end, less years of work, but also not saving all this time up so you get like a little bonus at the end of your career. You know, that's what a vacation's for, mental health.
Well, we've currently got everybody, people are saving up to 3 years right now. So if we changed it to 2, would we do a one-time authorization to pay out the vacation that's been earned over those 2 years?
How have they been accruing 3 years under our current policy?
Well, the system will let someone accrue up to 3 years if they retired on the last day of their 3rd year. So you would earn, so you would get 20. So let's say you work 2 years. July 1 is your start date. And so you've done 2 years, and then in the 3rd year, you retire June 30th. You would get your previous 2 years, and then you would get a third 20 days or whatever on July 1st. I mean, we would owe you 20 days because you've earned it by working that whole year. So that can give you 30 days.
Well, when I look at the statute that you included in this, it indicates it's the unused vacation leave to their credit at the time of separation, not to exceed the vacation leave accrued to their credit for the 2 years immediately preceding their separation, and the prorated portion of earned but unused vacation for the current year. I see what you're saying. So then they get 2 and whatever they would have earned for that 3rd.
Correct.
Well, I mean, I'm okay with mirroring that language, I guess, for the policy, because then that would not exactly be 3 years, but not put us in a position of 4, essentially. But I don't want people out with 3 years worth of vacation getting paid to them and then not having taken any vacation. Then 2 things are happening. So our employees aren't getting rest, and then we have a big bill at the end.
Yeah.
So again, what do we do with the people that are already over 3 years or at 3 years? Because
I think if you mirror the current language in the statute.
When I came on, the payroll system was set up to let people earn and carry over up to 3 years. And that's been.
What policy was that provided for under the, I mean, I guess what policy was that individual relying on in allowing that to occur?
Well, because right there, I mean, we could let somebody earn up to 3 years and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, if they've earned it, Dave, why can't, I mean, Simon can, advise us a little bit on this. Can't you have some type of clause as effective such and such moving forward? It applies, but for those that, accrued, it's not fair to the people who were accruing that time under an approved policy to lose that. Why can't we have it? Go ahead.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to be unfair with people. And I think that we might have to think this through a little bit more.
Well, that's why I'm suggesting we could approve a one-time payout for anybody over 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
However,
I would be more inclined to say that they get like 2 years to use it, not necessarily payout. I think there's different ways we could word this, that people might get a little extra vacation 1 year or 2 versus having to write somebody a check. I don't want to be creating liability for the school districts here.
Yeah,
it sounds like this was accidentally done in violation of our current policies.
Yeah, I agree with Simon. Now is not the time with the current economy to be writing big checks. And I also like the idea of capping it, because what happens is then you have people, I think somebody usually said that you kind of get like a little bonus when you leave. And then you have people taking days off, but they're not putting in for it because they're kind of, they know they're saving that to get kind of end. So we want
days
them
off without putting in for it.
Well, we just want to make sure they're using their time. And Simon and Ann both said it. We want people to be fresh and rejuvenated when they're here. We want them to take vacation. We want them to take these mental health days. We want them to, go do something, whether it's a graduation, one of your kids has a baby, go take that time.
We also, I want to caution us not to create a policy so that we expect people to spend down. And then, you have too many people who have not staggered the use of their days throughout the year. And then, here we come to the end of the accrual period or attendance year. and you have 7 or 8 people off, and you've created a hardship on the district because they haven't spent them. Many people use vacation as an insurance policy, and I'm not opposed to doing something that encourages people to use their time. I do like the idea of capping it, but at a certain point, I think you would just prorate any of that overage. I don't know. There's so many issues related to this policy that probably impact other policies.
Yeah.
So, approving this in isolation, while I commend you, Dave, for bringing it to our attention, and I want to correct the issue about the accrual rates and make them, more fair. I think it brings up so many other policy issues that are related to this topic.
I think Dave can figure those out and get this fixed. I still think this is an important thing that we need to address, that Dave is pursuing, and I think it's great for our employees. Do we have, do they have to submit when they want to take a vacation day for approval, or is it kind of like they put it in and they automatically get it?
It's at the discretion of the superintendent and the supervisor. They put it in through the kiosk system.
Okay. So you can make sure that we're not, if it's a day with students, we don't have 5 lunch ladies out at the same time. If we're going to encourage them to use.
Again, the only people that get the vacation are administrators, some of your secretaries at the board office, and your custodians that work year round.
Okay.
I mean, you're not going to see lunch ladies taking days off.
Okay.
But we do orchestrate that in that, say, for example, even if it's Mrs. Kroll and Mrs. Hagan, that if they have days to take off or vacation, that they don't usually, they coordinate that so they're both not taking them at the same time. It would be a rarity unless somebody had, for example, a funeral or something in a close family that was unexpected, that you would have that overlap. Other than that, they do communicate, and then they let me know that I'm taking this week and the other person's taking the other week.
Okay.
So put some statement in there about operational need, and that's at the discretion of you to set those, whatever the minimum standards are for operational need. You just put some statement in there that.
See, that's the thing. I don't want to be just putting things in there and then having us review it again and again. That's what I want to do tonight. I want to try to get this done.
How many people, when we're talking about people that are over the 3 years, which you said earlier, how many people is that? So we
Up to
know
3 years. Nobody's over
with.
3 years. They're at 3 years.
Okay, up to 3 years.
Yeah.
So how many people does that? 5 people, 20 people? What are you thinking?
I'd have to pull up my spreadsheet for that.
Okay.
I know that Art Hoff was one. He was the maintenance supervisor. He had 3 years and he got cut short. I did not pay him out everything that he had on file.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I don't feel that that was right for him to not receive all of his payment.
Mm-hmm.
So Simon, isn't there something that can be written in there effective this date? This is the policy that applies, so that those that have fairly accrued this. Yeah, like a grandfather. I mean, is that, I don't know.
I think I can't answer that question without reviewing the applicable statutes, our current existing policies, and referencing things. I think that's, and I really shouldn't be providing us legal advice. I think that's more of a Ricker and Eckler question. I think Dave does a great job. Talk to him. But I would suggest something exactly like that, Ann, that if that's possible, that's what we would do, have some type of policy that provides for the attrition of the excess of those accrued vacation days, and while being fair to employees, and then also mirroring the language of the statute that currently exists, which I think what happened is somebody read that statute, and it sounds like to me they may have misinterpreted it, because what it looks like to me on the statute, just my quick reading of it, is that you can accrue up to 2 years, but then on your 3rd year vacation that you have proportionally accrued that year gets added to it maybe. I'm not sure without really thinking through it, but I think that that's what we want to mirror. So Dave, I think if I were, my suggestion would be for the group and whatever the consensus is, I'm good with, but that we would, instead of having the 3-year language that you had there, which when I read that, I mean, that means like a total of like 365 days times 3 accrued vacation. I think we have to do it exactly the way they have in statute. And I would kind of substitute that sentence that you had in there, and I'm trying to find it here, where you have support personnel may accrue a maximum of 3 years of vacation leave, and any vacation leave above the 3-year maximum amount will be forfeited. I think what you do is you just mirror what it says in the statute. Upon separation from employment, a non-teaching school employee shall be entitled to compensation as current rate of pay for all lawfully accrued and unused vacation leave to his credit at the time of separation, not to exceed the vacation leave accrued to his credit for the 2 years immediately preceding his separation and the prorated portion of his earned but unused vacation leave for the current year. I would add that in there.
Well, it doesn't apply anymore if we accrue on a monthly basis. Because
well, I think you can reward it to make it that way. I mean,
so I mean, if we're doing it on a monthly,
isn't that just what they've accrued on a monthly basis?
No, that is based on an annual basis. So when you receive your vacation once a year, if you leave a quarter into your last anniversary, you just look
2 years back. You just look 24 months back as what was accrued. I don't think that changes that.
Well, that's 2 years and then 6 months, or 2 years and 4 months, or 2 years and 8 months.
What do you mean? It wouldn't just be, even if we start accruing them on a monthly basis, when they go to leave, if they get paid out for the 2 most previous years of employment, does it, I'm not sure how those 2 things conflict with each other.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
Okay, so right now, someone could get paid out for their previous 2 years, and then we owe them another 20 days because they worked almost the full year.
Okay, I guess I'm looking at it year to date.
Right.
Not...
So the policy currently under the state statute allows somebody to get almost up to 3 years paid out. And if we're trying to reduce it down to 2 years paid out, I mean, we're less than the current policy or current statute.
Well, when I'm reading that statute language.
Well, I've had that confirmed by Dave Lampy at Bricker.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I'm reading that, I don't think that conflicts if we're accruing them the way on a monthly basis. You're just
so are you limiting them to 2 years then? Because if I'm accruing
I think you have to switch it to, I think we have to switch it. I see what you're saying, Dave, but I think that you would switch that to 3 years immediately preceding a separation, and then you would cut it off there.
So yeah, that's what I was trying to do. 3 years, you're done.
Yeah, so I think not to exceed the vacation leave accrued to their credit for the 3 years immediately preceding their separation period. That's
correct.
End it.
Right, because that's.
But without the other language, the way it reads right now is 3. But I also think that.
I apologize. I moved my room around and the sun is still in my face.
No, that's all right. But I also think it's probably good that way you don't have to see mine. But I think we still want to limit it to 2 years eventually, and we just got to work on grandfathering in anybody who's accrued beyond that up to 3 before that. And I think that we have Dave come up with some language, if everybody's has a consensus with that we want to, going forward, we want people to use vacation, and we don't want them to be able to accrue more than 2 years of vacation accrued for the 2 previous years. And if they don't use it after the grandfathering portion of it, then they lose it. But then we also want to grandfather anybody who's accrued up to 3 years at this point in time, to be able to not include in that maximum what they may have accrued up to that 3-year maximum. And I think you want to have that first in, first out as far as when it's used. And I think myself through that. In other words, vacation use on, well, you can't do that because then you lose it anyway. So, but I think we want to exclude that. I got to think myself through that. I think Dave should be thinking himself through it rather than me, because he knows the statutes and stuff that might, and the other policies that may kind of commingle and make change the analysis. But that's my suggestion. And I would also, I mean, I think that waiting 8 to 14 years for 3 weeks is probably tough. I would say, I would be inclined to suggest that if you work there at 5 years, you get the 3 weeks. So 5 to 10 would get 3 weeks. And I would suggest 10 to, after 10 years, then you get up to 4 weeks, and that's the maximum, so that you're not waiting till you're 15 for 4 weeks.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is grandfather people that are already over 2 years, let them keep the 3, but all new hires or anyone currently under 2 years, that's their max, is the 2 years.
Yeah, but I think we really want to.
I think what Simon's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Simon, but I agree what Simon just summarized there. I'd rather, if it's in our budget, Dave, and we haven't really talked about that, but I would rather see that 5 to 10 year time frame on the 3 weeks, which I think is more in line with our.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, and then what, the 11 to, what is it? What'd you say, Simon, for the
15?
15 I think we need to go up on the amount of vacation days earlier in their employment. And then I would like to see this accruing banking, if you will, vacation days really minimized, if not eliminated. I think it's a good trade-off. I think people would very much appreciate having those longer vacation days earlier in their employment. And I also agree with Mrs. Dunaway's, paying these big sums out at the end. That's my thought.
Yeah, and honestly, when it comes to the budget, they're either working or they're taking the day off. It's not going to add anything to the budget.
Okay.
So it's the payout at the end that adds to the budget. And so,
Yeah.
So again, so we've got 0 to 5, 6 to 10, and 11 on. That's 10 days, 15 days, 20 days. Accruing immediately when they start work. And then again, the question I asked was, so what I'm hearing is grandfathering those currently over 2 years that may have already accrued up to 3. They can keep that 3 until they resign or retire.
Well, I think that's the last part of that, I think, is the thing I'm not real clear on yet, is whether that's what we want to do, is that so the limit for 2 years is only for new employees, or whether we want to just give it a period for that to expire. Right. So they have time to use it, or if they retire, they get, during that window of time, they use it, or they get paid for it. I guess we want to have a sunset clause on that grandfathering, like, hey, either retire, leave, and get paid before the sunset provision kicks in, or you lose them.
Okay.
I'm inclined to say that we just make it for new employees going forward, just not to create something that's not fair for people who have been relying potentially on this.
And we've done grandfathered clauses before with other things. It was before my time, but there's currently one in place on merit insurance pay for those that didn't accept, don't use our insurance. If they were hired before 2001 and they don't use our insurance, then they got $90 a month for that. That was a single pay amount, a single employee amount. So we still have a few people left on that one. Or if they change if they do join insurance or they change their plan, then they lose that. So anyway, When we do
Well,
have,
I think my personal feeling is you want to treat people fairly.
I agree.
And so if they've kind of relied on that over the years, I'd be inclined to just grandfather that and have no sunset provision. Like you kind of, just the way you just said, Dave, that'd be my recommendation. But for new hires that we have a limit of 2 years.
And when it comes to vacation, I keep a spreadsheet on it anyway. So, because right now I have to remember when to go in and accrue for everybody on their 1 year anniversary, as there are 33 people on it right now currently doing vacation in our district. And so changing that to a monthly accrual makes it easier because it's automatically done by the system. And then I'm just going in and making sure that the balance they're allowed to have is updated when necessary. So, I mean, I don't mind keeping that spreadsheet and then making notes saying their max is 2 years or their max is 3 years. I mean, I can talk with Mr. Lampy and see how we could write that in there to where all current employees are grandfathered in to have the max of 3 and be done with it.
I think it's a good idea to have Dave write this, because this is the type of stuff that can get us sued.
Is it inappropriate to expect those employees who have a 3-year accrual to spend it down in a time period to be determined so that everybody gets into that 2-year time frame?
Well, I think Simon was saying he didn't want to have that sunset clause of paying it down.
Okay. All right.
But again, I can run it by Mr. Lampy.
I went back and forth on that, Joelle, and my where I ended up thinking myself through out loud with all of you is that I felt that it may be unfair to do that to people that may have been relying on that in the past. And so my thought is that we only make it, we don't go retroactively or have any sunset provision where they have to use it. And that's just for all new employees, that's going to be what they're governed by.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't have all the answers, obviously. Everybody knows that.
No, but you're giving a concept, Simon, and I tend to agree with that. Like I said, in my simplistic analysis, which is very simple, I'd rather see more vacation time up front earlier on and back away from the banking vacation and paying it out at the end.
I agree.
Okay, so just to recap really quick, so I know I'm on the same page with everybody, given this whole Zoom situation. We like Dave's basic policy. We're probably going to have to figure out some exchange for Good Friday, because that will, it could fall into a conflict with the academic calendar. So if we want to have a Good Friday date, it needs to be another date that won't conflict with an academic calendar. And you're going to check on a way to just have new hires be limited to 2 years accrual for vacation days. And you're going to have that checked with Lampy. And is that right? Did I mention everything? But basically, we like this.
1 to 4 or 0 to 5, 6 to 10.
Yes.
11 plus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, not to throw another sticky wicket in there, but we've got employees that have been working for 17 years or 18 years. And do we just say as of, like starting right now, do we go back and retro old years that they've worked and give, but we don't want to do that because that max, I just say right now.
Yeah, I don't think they just get the benefit moving forward.
We'll move them up and put them where they need to be now based on what their years of service are, and
yes,
they're benefiting from that.
Yes.
We're not going back. We're not going back to take it away, but we're not adding either.
Yeah. Going back makes things hard.
Mm-hmm.
Retro steps. That was fun.
And Dave, just to help me with this, it's 5. So the 0 to 5 is 5 years. The 6 to 10 is
0 to 5 is 10 days.
10 days. And then the 11 plus, is it
20 days. 20 days.
20
days.
20.
Yep. I can take care of this. And
Got it.
Good Friday alternate. Would we want to put something in there maybe that says if Good Friday falls on a regular school day, the employee can work with supervisors to switch it for another day? Or because it might be a little harder to find an alternating holiday that they can trade it for.
Dave, since I've been in the district for 6 years, we've always been off on Good Friday. Do you remember a time that we weren't?
I think there may have been one time when the treasurer was off and nobody else was. So
Okay. In the 6 years that I've been in TIP, we've been off. I think that always kind of works out with the calendar committee. That they just always kind of work it out that way.
yeah. And I know that when I looked at the Troy policy, it states Good Friday in Troy's policy as well. So maybe they try to ensure that school isn't in session that day as well. So,
Yeah, we've never had school since I've been here.
Can't we just make it a policy that we don't have school on Good Friday?
I think the calendar committee definitely looks at that.
Yeah, the calendar committee kind of works.
You know, but yeah, and we do to use their head. I mean,
honestly, when we're
policy, if you chose.
when we're doing the calendar committee, we look at what days are holidays and we build around those anyway. So if that becomes a day that we recognize, then I don't see why we couldn't build that in. So.
Okay.
So,
So Dave, I have a
Okay.
question for you. I'm sorry. Getting back to your earlier statement about kind of reviewing other district policies, and we were coming up a little short and looking in terms of benefits and the like and vacation. Do you feel this brings us closer to being competitive with other districts, revising these days?
I think the 0 to 5 and 6, I think that change right there will really make people happy. I think even just adding 1 or 2 days would have made people ecstatic for holidays. And I think what we're talking about right here does fix an issue that people have brought to me every year since I've been a treasurer here.
Great.
And
Great.
I really think that this could go a long way to showing that we saw that there was an issue. We want to fix it and make it better. So yeah, and I think that this will really help.
And financially, our district's able to do this, Dave, you feel, from a dollars and cents perspective?
Again, it's so what you're doing is you're adding in maybe a sub cost, and it's the sub cost for all of these positions. Administration doesn't get subs. You're talking maybe a sub for a custodian, and so the dollars here that we're discussing is very limited, very limited.
Great. Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah. So I will move forward and see if I can get a better draft of this. I'll try to have something for the Friday board update, and we could try doing a first read on Monday at the next regular meeting, or we could try moving it in a little later. So either way, we have to do 2 reviews before it can become policy. So.
Okay.
All right,
Go ahead, Dr. Kump, anything else?
unless we're ready for the next item.
I think we're good. I don't think any more final comments, so.
Okay.
Well, I do have one more question. So I mentioned Mr. Hoff had resigned earlier this school year, and he has left vacation on the books. Would we look, or maybe we do a board resolution paying that out to him, or what was left over for his 3 years? Because he had saved 3 years up, but he didn't. His final year, I think he was hired in August or September. I think he was hired September 1st. So when he resigned on December 31st, that was just a quarter. So we only paid him out 2 years and a quarter accrual of 20 days. So we paid him 45 days instead of the 60 that he had on the books.
I think that we have to discuss that in executive session. Since
Yeah,
it's
okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Valid point. I agree.
Okay.
We can add that for Monday.
All right, then I think we're done.
Okay, Dr. Kumpf?
All right. Next item, it is regarding the evaluations this year for our certified staff. And that's based on just our mandated closure and also House Bill 197. And so working closely with just the documents that were coming out from the state about options that were being provided, as well as working with the TCEA, the teachers union, to make sure that we would need a memorandum of understanding that they would be agreeable to signing off on, as well as if once our board supported it. And so basically what we've arrived at, working with the administrative team and all the other documents, is the aspect that ultimately House Bill 197 indicates that if it's deemed unpractical to complete an evaluation due to the closure and items that were left undone, that they could, there would be a button in the ETPES, which is the Ohio portal, and essentially then it could be rolled over and it could say COVID-19, it says COVID-19, so that does not have to be fully completed. But knowing that in our district that we were rather far along with that process, and a number of our teachers and administrators would really prefer to go ahead and complete that, we've been able to arrive at what I call several options. And so on your attachments, you'll find one, there will be one that is what I call a grid. And there's one that's about SLO, and that's a template, but I want us to really start with the grid. If we could take a minute to look at that. I think it's a good, in a sense, visual or breakdown about what the memorandum of understanding really outlines in a narrative form, but it indicates that ultimately there are those that have completed evaluations and already entered them in and have even pinned off, that's a type of a sign off with just a digital code, that those will remain entered in and will be utilized. And they are wishing to do that, and we are as well. And then those that were previously completed observations and walkthroughs will be carried forward toward completing the evaluation. In other words, if they have a component that's finished or they have not done their final conferences, some of those kind of entries, that we would go ahead and complete that process. Or they could choose to use the COVID-19 option in the ETPES, which will exempt the staff from completing it. And what happens with that, though, is that the individual has to understand and realize that with that option, that they will repeat the evaluation during the 2021 school year. And so that's what that looks like. Then the other piece is we looked at both student growth measures. We have two components. We have the growth measures and we also have the walkthroughs. So we have for the growth measures, we have SLO, student learning objectives. That's a narrative piece. And then we also have a value added data. So for our student learning objectives, that is a situation where some of them do absolutely have that completed. Others have the very last piece of data. They've had mid-year information and even maybe in the last quarter, but they won't have necessarily fourth. And so they will make a best faith professional projection of what that will come to. And then that will be reflected on with the principal and with that particular teacher, or in the value added, the 1819 is in it. So there was a little confusion in House Bill 197. It indicates that value added will not be part of the evaluation process with the 1920 value added scores, because there will be no 1920 value added scores. And that's because the state tests have been canceled.
Right.
So there are scores that are for 1819, and they are actually in the portal, in the system. And so those will be utilized for the evaluation process. And the teachers realize that. And as I said, a number of them have already pinned off on it, so they understand that. And then the walkthroughs and observations, that any remaining ones, so that we would still do a pre-conference. We would do via Google Hangout. There would be the classroom Google Hangout. There would be a teacher narrative of the lesson and a post-conference via Google Hangout. And the walkthroughs could be conducted in a Zoom meeting in the Google Hangout or any other teacher-student interaction. So it allows us to continue to proceed with that. There is a rubric that is part of that ETPES, part of the OPES process, and the rubric, that entry would just be gone over, and that would be a discussion via Google Hangout. The summative evaluation would be the same thing, and then that's pinned off as usual. And so I just provided a little bit of rationale about this, that there's been a lot of work that's already been put into this by both our teachers and our administrative staff. The value added scores are already in place for the 18-19 year that is actually in the portal. And there's a number that's on continuing contracts. Certainly they would like to proceed with this and have the opportunity for that. And then there are a number right now on this particular cycle that are on a 3-year cycle, and a number of them have been accomplished teachers, so that they are very strong standing and very comfortable moving forward. And certainly those that are in a carryover situation, that adds to the load for next year for evaluation. So to avoid having double the number to be evaluated, this is extremely helpful to be able to proceed this way. And it's great that our teachers are very interested in doing this, as well as our administrators. And then the other piece that was one of the forms or attachments was the SLO scoring template. So we have not had this before, but this just would create consistency, particularly in this particular situation of looking at our SLO that is in process, and then there becomes a narrative score on that, or I would call it, numeral rating, and that just shows the percentage of growth that was met or exceeded, and then the formula for building that across, and then once again the implications based on the data and the professional reflection. What is the potential area of instructional focus for the next year? That's kind of queuing that up based on this information, and then based on that data as well, what would you deem as being a strength? And so this would be one of the parts or attachments that we could upload into the ETPES, or have it as an attachment just with a teacher's evaluation packet. In the MOU, that's not part of these two pieces, but the actual MOU, there's also an additional statement that indicates that for our district, that we will not be moving toward what's called the OTES 2.0. And so there's a lot still that has to be done on that. We were in a situation with our union contract that we could wait one more year, because our contract, once again, has this one last school year. And so we were able to stay with the OTES 1.0. But they're now in House Bill 197, they are giving space that all districts have an option of whether to move forward or not. And we definitely, as a district, want to wait and not move forward for this school year to be in OTES 2.0. And that just puts that in there so we don't have to have another resolution later on. Any questions on that?
Greta, in the MOU on number 7, it says March 16th, 2019. I'm thinking you meant 2020.
Yes.
So that might.
I thought we had that corrected, but that we messed it up, got that uploaded. Thank you, Corinne.
It's not a big deal, but you know, those dates.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it is.
I have a little trouble pulling that up.
It's the very first attachment. That you sent us.
So that's paragraph 7 or item 7.
Item 7. Yeah, you'll just know to fix that before you sign it, Dr. Comp.
Okay, I'll do that
Now, you and me,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
Whoever created this document, it's number 7. It just changed the March 16th to
2020 instead.
Right. Thanks, Corinne.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone who put in all the time to get this, prepared for us to vote on tonight.
I appreciate your support on this. It was a big project, but I do think we're in a good place on it. It's an important piece for everyone, those that's being evaluated and for those that are putting in the time to do the evaluations.
Imagine there are a lot of systems you're looking at.
Right. Are we ready to move forward, or does
I
anyone?
don't have anything else.
Okay. All right, so item A, are you ready for me to read that?
Under new business.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
New business.
Okay. Item A, approval to amend the 2019-2020 evaluation process to reflect the changes outlined in House Bill 197 due to COVID-19. Details of the amended evaluation process are outlined in the required attached MOU, Memorandum of Understanding.
A motion.
I'll second.
Motion and seconded by Joellen and Corinne. Any further discussion?
Recognizing that we're making the correction.
Yes,
That
with
Corinne pointed.
the correction on number 7.
Yes.
And I would note that if and hopefully this is approved, that this will then be provided to the staff yet tonight or early tomorrow morning.
Okay, Dave, we ready for a vote?
Sure. Okay. Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Patry,
Simon, you're muted.
Simon, you're muted.
Yes.
Probably on
Okay.
mute.
Zakor,
Yes.
Okay, motion
Great.
carries.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so now we are going to adjourn to executive session for purposes authorized under Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22G1 to consider the compensation of a public employee or official. And the board would like to invite Dr. Kumpf and Mr. Stevens into executive session, and we don't anticipate any action being taken tonight.
I'll move.
I'll second. Moved and seconded by Corinne and Teresa.
ready for a vote?
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Okay, so everybody should have a separate link that Corinne sent. Do you want to take like a 5 or 10-minute break?
Yes.
What do you?
I was gonna say I'll
Yes,
be doing
please.
5? Okay, 5-minute break. So let's jump back on at
Just like 7:20.
7:20. All right, just make it 7:20.
Thank you.
Okay, see you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. Leave meeting. Okay. Hang on, Kitty.
Hey, Simon, I believe we're going into
You want me to leave right now?
yeah, I mean, I think we're going into another meeting.
All right, so I'll leave it and come back on this one.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
thanks.
I just come back on this one. It'll still be running.
Okay.
Cool, thanks. I think we're waiting on Anne. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Ooh, I heard someone. It just sounds so quiet.
Are we all here?
I think we're still waiting for Anne.
Okay, perfect. I didn't scroll down. I don't see everybody. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, everybody good.
I'm back.
Remember last week when my computer died? Maybe that happened to her.
There she is.
Oh, good.
She's on her iPad.
Okay. Okay, so we are back in regular session. And I would like to announce the next, sorry, my other computer just stopped on me. The next regular Board of Education meeting will take place on Monday, April 27th, via remote connectivity on YouTube at 6 o'clock. And that's it for I have for all the upcoming meetings, and I just need a motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, so Corinne and Joellen, Dave.
Okay. Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes,
Patry.
He's muted.
he's on mute. Simon, you're on mute.
We
Well,
can read your lips.
I was trying to say something before we jumped into the motion to adjourn. So I would appreciate if somebody voted no along with me on this, so I could no on the adjournment, so I could talk about what I was going to talk about real quick.
Oh, sure.
Wait, how do we do that in the middle of
Who
the
is
vote?
it?
Well, I'd move to amend the motion to adjourn to take place immediately following my request to speak to the board.
Motion to,
Dave, where
So
are we on the?
from a Robert's Rules of Order, you guys have moved to adjourn. Before any
Correct.
discussion occurred, we jumped right into the voting. I'm going to say just point of order, and I'd like move to amend that motion to adjourn that's already started to take place after I've had the opportunity to discuss one item.
Go ahead, Simon. I'm just trying to figure out where we were in the voting thing. I can't remember.
I didn't have Simon or Mrs. Zakor.
Okay, so there were already 3 no's is what I'm trying to establish.
There were 3 yes votes.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
3 yes to adjourn. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so go back to Simon's, because he was on mute, so I got confused. So where are we, Dave?
He just would like to ask, he's asking us to motion to adjourn, motion to amend the motion to adjourn and allow him to address the board. And return back to the motion to adjourn after he addresses the board.
Idea how to handle that?
Well, I mean, it's just a point of order. We jumped right into a motion to adjourn without any discussion or any calls of the general membership for any additional business before we concluded.
Okay,
I would like to add my just quick request of the board prior to the adjournment. I'm not opposed to adjourning, and so my thought was the quickest, easiest way to do is to amend the adjournment motion to have us adjourn as soon as I make my request of the board.
I'd rather, yeah.
go ahead, Dave. What's your opinion?
I would just say, Simon, why don't we just pause and let you address the board?
All right.
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
fine.
I'm totally fine with that.
All right, so what I was going to move is ask the board add to the next meeting's agenda. I think Joellen indicated she she might be willing to do this, is to add the open enrollment for discussion and for potential vote at the next meeting.
I requested the president that we add that as an agenda item.
To do what?
Hang on for
I
a
would
second.
like to add to the next meeting's agenda, open enrollment for discussion and for a vote.
I don't want to rehash this again. I want.
Yeah, I'm a no. We've already spent 5 meetings on this. I don't.
Now we have 2 board
Yes.
members who have asked to do that. Joe and I are asking to do that.
Okay, Joellen asked me to add it to tonight to the work session, and it was too late because it was 5 hours before the meeting. So I'm sorry, Joellen, it's too late. So
that's why I'm saying for next board meeting.
correct. So I guess if you're making, my answer is no. There's nothing else to talk about. We just had it.
You have 2 board members who have asked you to put something on the agenda. You have to.
I don't think we do. We've already discussed this 5 times.
You have 2 board members have asked you to put something on the agenda.
Yeah, but it's been a motion, Simon, under what Robert?
Right.
Are you trying to rescind it? I don't understand.
Under what Robert's Rules of Order am I precluded from doing it?
Well, I mean, we're trying to have a vote to end this, and you're trying to now, under your comment, insert an additional vote. I just don't think
Well,
we've done this
there was,
correctly.
if you recall, it was a point of order that you.
Yeah, if I recall, you were making a
before you
comment.
offer the position of the board to add anything else. We have a right to do that. I'm asking and moving that the next agenda for the next meeting has this on the agenda, as I'm allowed to. I've been joined by Joellen, and that's all I'm saying. And I think that has to be done. If you guys want to present to me some authority as to why I'm not allowed to do that, I'm glad to look at it.
I mean, Simon, we
Go
can
ahead.
do that. I don't think that it's good boardmanship. I'm just going to throw that word out there to continue to drag up dead weight again. We have to move forward as a board and work for Tipp City Schools, not for your private agenda.
Okay, let me attempt to rephrase. I think the implications of this vote has created some hardships for people in our community because
They're not in our community.
because of these current circumstances, those students that were open enrolled who have now received notice that they cannot attend our district anymore, their families don't have any other options. And so
Yeah, they do. They can go to the schools where they live.
And what does that mean? They don't have another option?
Well, I believe that that's what I want us to talk about. Are there any other options that we can explore for them, given the hardship that we're creating because of the COVID-19?
We are not creating an option. We're not creating a hardship, Joellen.
No, that's
What this is
an unfair narrative.
Yeah, this is taking away from our real job, which is working for Tipp City Schools. You and Simon have a private agenda for whoever it is that you have a private agenda for. If you want to bring it back up under Robert's rules, Simon has the right to. That's fine. But I want to just be clear. This is your two's private agenda for whoever
Well,
it is.
you know what?
I'm
I'm not going to, point of order. I don't need to be personally attacked here because I want to bring something on the agenda. If you want to articulate arguments as to what I'm going to bring upon, that's fine. But don't imply or infer that I'm acting inappropriate on a personal agenda on a board meeting because I've simply asked to add something to an agenda.
Well, let me give you a different.
Hey, I'm going to ask that we stop. I'm going to ask
One
to
second,
stop.
1 second. I want to address Simon. Simon, you're asking for something on the agenda. This was motioned twice, open enrollment, and it failed, okay, under a full board vote. Now, if you have something you want to address under old business this coming Monday, fine, I guess that's okay. I mean, I'm not an expert at this. I'm learning, but I'm trying to, I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I don't think there's any prohibition against you speaking out on open enrollment under old business. But when I read Robert's rules, the purpose of Robert's rules is so you can't keep putting motions and motions and motions because it doesn't go anywhere. And if it's my understanding rescinding, then it should be the prevailing party. In other words, the way I read it is someone on the prevailing party has to be the one to motion that, to put it up to a vote again. And you're
That's-
not on the prevailing.
I don't know the answer to that question, Ann, but
I'll
I'm,
look it up in Robert's rules. I didn't
And-
know it either until I read it.
and so I don't know the answer to that
Because
question,
the
but
whole purpose
I
of
am
it, Simon,
moving
if
to
I
add
may
it to the
appeal,
agenda.
Simon, if I may appeal to your logic, the reason there's a procedure like that is so we don't go down into an abyss of continually putting things up on the agenda over and over and over. Some point, the governance needs to move forward to new items.
I can
I
appreciate
understand that,
So
but
if-
I think that there's been a lot of things that have occurred that need to be discussed.
Then why aren't you discussing it under old business next week? You don't have to motion for that, do you? I don't know.
I'm wanting to add it as an agenda item.
Hey, Simon, so I'm just kind of jump in here as board president. When this happened, okay, so we had the board meeting on March 16th. There were only 4 board members. So open enrollment, we changed the open enrollment status. So then you and Joellen requested a special meeting, which was absolutely, you're right. So we had a special meeting on it. And then we had another board vote because everybody said it wasn't fair that we wanted all 5 board members to vote on this, which I agree. This is a big decision. It impacted, 30 kids. So fine. So then we did a full board vote. And then the board voted to end open enrollment. So during that time, I had a few phone calls with Dave Lampy. To Ann's point of, I said to Dave Lampy, Dave, how many times can we keep putting this on the agenda? And what Ann said is correct. The prevailing party has to be the one to put it back on the agenda. So for the special meeting, it was you and Joellen. So now the prevailing party, if my information from Dave Lampy is correct, would be myself, Ann, and Joellen.
Who directed you to get that opinion from David Lampy?
And
How was that inquiry and an answer communicated to the rest of the board?
Simon, I allowed you to have, after your special meeting, I reached out to Dave Lampy because we all got the email from Dave Lampy, Simon. It was about the weird thing about the computer software messing up the vote. Nobody really realized that happened. So Dave, I don't know.
That happened before the special meeting, that email.
Okay,
That,
Simon, that's how all of this got started.
look, I don't want to rehash the history here. I'm familiar with it.
Okay,
I'm asking that it be added to the agenda.
Okay.
You're indicating to me right now that you have asked Dave Lampy for a legal opinion as to whether I'm allowed to do that.
no, I did not. This is going back
That's
to
what you
March.
just said. It's on video, Teresa.
Oh my God,
did
Simon,
not
I'm
say
going back
that,
to March 16th.
She did not say
I
that.
reached out to Dave Lampy, or I think Dave Lampy reached out to me. Dave Stevens, do you remember if Dave called us about the software thing?
No, I called Dave. I think.
Okay. So
I'm not talking about the software right now.
Okay.
I'm talking about my rights to call this again. You just said things like the prevailing party can only bring it up,
Okay,
etc.
Simon, when the whole
That
software,
was an opinion David Lampy just told you. So if that's not the case, that's fine. But if there is, so what I'm doing right now, I just make it very succinct, is that I'd like to add it to the agenda for next meeting. And if somebody has some authority as to why I'm not allowed to do that, I'm very glad to look at it.
But you want
Okay.
to put it on the agenda for what purpose? That's what I'm confused about.
To
Well,
discuss,
For me to restate, it has created a hardship for those families because they don't have any options. They can't go buy a house right now. They can't move into our district. There has been no closure for their students. And we talk about caring about students. There's been no action that our students are able to conclude their school year among their teachers and their friends.
But Joellen, wait a minute, wait, I'm sorry. There was no trickery
We talked
here.
about this on-
Every year you sign those forms, there's no guarantee.
so this would be something that would be discussed at the next meeting, not tonight. And
right.
that's
So, Simon, to
I'm
your
asking. I'm not
point-
wanting to discuss it tonight. I'm
Okay.
wanting to discuss it at the next meeting.
Okay, so Simon, myself, Corinne, Dave Stevens, and Greta, we have a meeting tomorrow at 3:30, just like we do every month, a week before the board meeting, where we set the agenda. So we will discuss, the 4 of us, that you want to add this as an agenda item. That's all.
Thank you. Joelle and I both do.
Understood, point taken, understood. Okay, so now, going back to the motion to adjourn the meeting, do I need to redo that, Dave? Do I need to say it again, or do we need to just vote again?
Let's just vote it again.
Okay, so it was Corinne made the motion and Joellen second.
Yep. So I've got Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Meeting adjourned.
Thanks,
Goodbye, everyone.
Hi.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Good night, Greta.